Australia has always been home to a good collection of coasters, but in 2017, they got one that would draw in people from around the world. 202 feet tall, almost 4,600 feet of track, a twisted mess of magenta. This mock ride's masterpiece is called DC Rivals Hypercoaster, and right away, it was on every enthusiast's bucket list. Being in Australia, it's hard for a lot of people to get to, so this coaster remained a mystery for a lot of us for several years. But last month, I was able to get down there, and this was by far my most anticipated coaster. I got 5 rides, including one going backwards, so I got a good sense of the ride, and today I'm ready to share my thoughts. This is my official review of DC Rivals Hypercoaster. When you drive into Movie World, you're greeted by this monstrous hyper, the bright track popping out, the Joker's face at the top of the lift being the defining symbol. I remember driving to the Gold Coast from Brisbane the first night, and off the freeway, all you can see in the darkness is the neon Joker floating in the sky. This gives the coaster an identity, and apparently, because of this, a lot of the GP call it the Joker Coaster. Once you're in the park, DC Rivals is right there in the front. Just turn left and walk all the way down past Green Lantern, and once you're in line, you'll see 4 options. The regular queue, the single rider, the backwards car, and fast track. We didn't do the fast track. It was $179 Australian, or about $118 US. But when the park only has 4 coasters, we figured we were good on time. Still, if you want to marathon DC Rivals or anything else, with these slow operations, you might want to spring for it. We got 3 rides on the first day, but because we bought a 3-day Village Roadshow pass that included SeaWorld, we were able to come back and get re-rides on other days also. That's how I ended up with 5. If you spend a few days at the parks on the Gold Coast, you gotta consider that 3-day ticket. I was lucky to find them running 2 trains on DC Rivals. That's not always the case, and with long dispatch times, 2 trains makes the line bearable. They do have assigned seating, but they seem generous if you ask them for a certain seat. The only time they denied me was when they had people that claimed the back seat that had an exit pass, so at least they had a reason. The one thing they do crack down on is loose articles. I've never seen a coaster where you can't have anything in your pockets. This seems like a general rule in Australia. Most of the big rides have the same thing. I'm used to the US where you can have anything in your pockets with few exceptions, like Great Adventure. But even then, if you have your passport in your pocket, they won't freak out. On DC Rivals and the other big coasters, you can't have anything. This coaster has bins on the side. I don't think they have lockers for the ride itself. And those bins do spin, so your stuff is protected from being stolen from the other train. It's kind of a pain, but they make it pretty easy. One of the main things I was nervous about going into the ride was the lap bars. I really don't like mock rides lap bars. Copperhead Strike, Manta, Helix. Those come down hard and they're unforgiving. Time Traveler is also a mock, but those lap bars have some give. I'm happy to report DC Rivals has good lap bars. They remind me a lot of Time Traveler. You aren't smashed into your seat at any time. And even on the rides where I did get, quote, stapled, I still got some good airtime. If you were worried about the lap bars, don't be. Now for the ride. You go up the lift hill, right up to the Joker's face, and you start with a twisted first drop. I normally don't like the twist. Give me a straight drop any day, but this one is well done. It gives me hope for rides like Expedition G-Force, a coaster at the top of my bucket list, but the twisted first drop didn't seem too appealing. Now I know, these can be done very well. You get ripped over when you're in the back, getting some very good lateral airtime. You then fly over a big camelback, and this gives some strong sustained air. This reminds me of those B&M 5-second airtime hills, but this one has more power. Then you fly into the non-inverting loop. This is an awesome element. Not quite as good as Rip Ride Rocket. That one, you're out of your seat the whole time. On DC Rivals, it's not continuous, but you get whipped around and still get amazing airtime. After these first 3 elements, you're ready to call this the best ride in the world. But then comes the middle section, and for the most part, it's not that good. You have this high bank to the right where the train slows down. This seems like a missed opportunity. It could have done a lower the ground Fast Fury 325 type turn, but instead it rises up and takes it slow. Then you got this nice turnaround with a hitch at the top. This gives you some good airtime in the back. Then you got a couple snappy turns, not that good. And this switchback hill, which is very good. And then the weakest part of the ride, this drawn out Helix type turn. It seems like this is totally filler. They could have cut this out of the ride, connected the switchback hill to the finale, and it would have been just as good. DC Rivals ends with a bang. These 2 small airtime hills launch you out of your seat. Then it turns and gives you one more, then rises into the final brakes. You end up with 62 seconds of ride time, and you do not feel cheated once it's all over. Now, I mentioned this has 4 lines you can get into. One of those lines is the backwards back car. You've probably ridden coasters backwards. Colossus at Magic Mountain, Viper at Great America, maybe even one of the Batman clones. But riding a hypercoaster backwards is something totally new. This isn't free. It used to be $10 Australian. That's what I was expecting. But when we got there, we found it was $30 Australian, or about $20 US. It kind of went from way too cheap to way too expensive. Way over half the trains went out with nobody in the back seat. It seems like if they charged less, they could sell more tickets and keep that seat filled. But I digress. They can make their own pricing decisions, and no matter how much they charged, I was gonna give it a shot. It feels very strange going up that lift hill backwards. I was hunched over in my seat, stomach melting into the lap bar, wondering when we were gonna hit the top. The part I was most excited for was flying down that near vertical twisted drop, watching the Joker face get smaller and smaller as we hit the ground, and that part definitely delivered. If you're scared to do this backwards, don't be. I thought it would be absolutely insane, on the level of X2 in the back. Something I was able to do just a few days before I went to Movie World. But X2 in the back is way more chaotic than DC Rivals backwards. That's not a bad thing. I thought the ride experience was awesome. Sometimes riding backwards is gimmicky and you lose the forces. I still got all those forces, all those great airtime moments, and it still did not feel out of control. Funny enough, aside from the first drop in the non-inverting loop, taking those backwards is of course insane. Those last couple bunny hills made me yell the loudest. Getting that level ejector airtime going backwards was a totally different experience. And now, some of my favorite airtime moments ever. I don't know what it was, but the shape of those hills taken backwards was just perfect. It's definitely worth a try, but at the price they're charging, maybe just do it once. If you're a high roller, maybe do it twice. The good thing is, you will not have to wait in line. Movie World has priced out most people from doing this, but your wallet's gonna be a lot lighter afterward. If you want to ride this backwards, you gotta download the Village Roadshow app and buy the ticket there. They give you a QR code and the ride up in the station scans it. After you book it, it gives you something like 30 to 45 minutes to redeem it. So maybe wait to book it right before you want to use it. It also seemed like there was a limited number available, so watch out for that. Maybe don't wait too late to buy it. I got 3 rides in the back, 1 going backward, and I also got stuck in row 6. That's when someone took the back from the exit row. I never did the front. It just seemed like there was too much good whip in the back to waste my time in the front. And in general, I don't like sharp airtime in the front of a train. It seems to shove you forward instead of lifting you up. So for rides with ejector airtime, I try to stick to the back. As for row 6, it wasn't bad at all. It wasn't like a secret weapon. The way Baldur and Air Force One actually give elite rides in the middle. This wasn't anywhere near as good as the back, but I did not come off disappointed. It still had a lot of power. Now, the moment of truth. How high is DC Rivals gonna land in my top 50? Based on this review, you can probably tell this is absolutely a top 50 coaster. But because of that middle section, it can't stand up with the ultra elites. Still, a smooth coaster with very comfortable lap bars, giving a long ride with some elite elements. Airtime from start to finish. This flies into my top 50, past 30, into the top 20. And now I gotta find what coasters I'm gonna slide it in between. Is it better than X2? It's not as crazy, but yes, this is a better ride. Superman the ride. Yes, Superman has the better layout, but DC Rivals isn't that far off. And it's got way better lap bars. Twisted Timbers. Hard to compare, but yes, I prefer DC Rivals. Raging Bull. This has a couple dead sections also, and the elite moments are better on DC Rivals, so it's gonna rank higher. Magnum XL 200. This is a tough one, but even though I love Magnum from start to finish, maybe minus that weird turnaround, DC Rivals is more modern and well-rounded. Ghost Rider. This is where I draw the line. Ghost Rider is the better all-around coaster. Even if DC Rivals has stronger airtime, Ghost Rider is a work of art and it's forceful through and through. DC Rivals ends up at my number 13 spot. I can't say it exceeded my expectations, but it definitely landed on the upper end of my expectations. Some of my fears turned out not to be a problem. The twisted first drop was great, the lap bars were just fine, but I didn't see the dead middle section coming, and that knocks it out of my top 10. If you can get to Australia, enjoy everything the country has to offer. Go see Sydney, catch a cricket match, walk over the Harbour Bridge and visit the Opera House. Visit all their interesting parks, but make it a point to get to Warner Bros. Movie World and ride DC Rivals Hypercoaster. This was my first experience with a mock hyper, and now I gotta get out and ride the others. Let me know what you think of my review. If you've ridden it, tell me where you agree or disagree. If you haven't, let me know where this is on your bucket list, and if you have any other questions I didn't answer here. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like, and if you're new here and love coasters, please give me a sub. I have a vlog from my experience at Movie World, and a playlist with all my other coaster reviews. Those links are down below. Also, check out my second channel where I post copyright-free off-ride footage, and my baseball channel where I talk about all things cricket. I mean, baseball. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.